This is how you level up 10 times faster. And this is how you kill NPCs without them being able to kill you. These are 21 things you need to do when you start Blox Fruit. Okay, so the first thing every new Blox Fruit player should do is enter in a bunch of codes. And the reason for this is that codes are really simple to use and that payback is amazing. You got codes for a bunch of different things in this game. You have codes for double XP, you have codes for getting belly, and you have one code that gives you a free stat refund. But one thing I should mention with this tactic is that don't use every single double XP code as soon as you enter the game. And the reason for that is because you're not always going to be grinding levels. So you don't want to use them all as soon as you start. The way I recommend you guys to do it is to enter in one of your double XP codes and then grind for the amount of time that your double XP code is there. And then if you have to leave or get off Roblox, then you can do that. But if you have more time to grind, then enter in another double XP code and just continue this process till you use up all your double XP codes. This way, you're only grinding while your double XP is active and you're not wasting even a single second of it. And the stat refund codes, obviously use them for stat refunds, and the belly codes, just use them if you want to buy something. Now I'm going to be telling you about the first quest that you have to get once you enter into Blox Fruit. So once you open up your Blox Fruits, you're going to be given two options. Either you start as a marine or you start as a pirate. But 99% of players choose pirate, and the reason for that is because pirates are just way cooler. So once you spawn into the pirate starter island, you want to head over to this NPC right over here, and then click on him and he gives you only one quest, which is bandits. All you got to do is just pummel all of these bandits to death, and you just keep repeating this until you unlock your next quest. If you're a marine, it's the exact same thing, but you spawn in on a different island called the Marine Starter Island. And here, when you talk to the quest giver, he gives you a quest for marine trainees, and the marine trainees have the exact same stats and levels as the bandits, so they take the same amount of time to kill. Once you pummel all the trainees, you just rinse and repeat until you're done with it. Then you just head over to the next island. Okay, so next up for you beginners, I'm going to be telling you about the 3 different type of fruits and Blox Fruits. There's elemental fruits, there's natural fruits, and there's beast fruits. Ideally, what you want to aim for in the first seed to be good at grinding is an elemental fruit. And the reason these fruits are really good in the first seed is because unless an enemy has hockey, they can't actually do any damage to you. And there's a button of players and NPCs in the first seed that don't have any hockey. And the fruit I recommend you guys to get is the light magmor or ice fruit. These are pretty good fruits for grinding to start off with. The smoke and blizzard fruits are the only elemental fruits in the game with no awakening. And the only common elemental fruit is the smoke fruit, but it's still a really good fruit for grinding. Of course, the dough fruit is the most expensive elemental fruit, so if you get your hands on this early, just count yourself lucky. Overall, elemental fruits are the best category in my opinion, because the literal best PvP fruit in the game, the awakened dough, is an elemental fruit. But I doubt you're going to be getting that in the first season. Alright, moving on to the next trick. Well, it's not actually a trick, it's the sponsor of this video, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is a super in-depth RPG battle system game with amazing graphics, intense PvE boss fights, and many other things. Sounds cool, right? Come on, let me tell you some more. Raid has a bunch of unique champions. There's literally more than 700 of them. They got 15 amazing factions: lizardmen, orcs, dwarves, undead, elves. And Raid has a faction just for you. You can take on 12 terrifying dungeons, each containing a brutal boss that'll take all your skill to defeat. You can battle against players from all around the world in 3 amazing PvP game modes, including real-time live arena. It even has regular updates, adding in new champions, modes, and features for players to enjoy. There's always a new challenge to take on, with millions of different artifact combinations, team compositions, and strategies to test out. You basically have infinite ways to play the game. Raid is a worldwide game with over 400 million players in more than 190 countries, and you can join them today. You can get Raid on mobile and desktop for free, so you literally don't have an excuse to not get it. My favorite thing about Raid are the amazing graphics and the fact that you can play it anytime, anywhere. Are you looking for a new challenge in Raid? Well, you're in luck. They've just added a fearsome new boss called Akumorai the Phantom Shogun. This undead general is guarding everything you need for accessory ascension, a new feature in the game that allows you to upgrade your gear and make it 10 times better. And if you've somehow managed to miss out on this incredible animated series by Raid, Call of the Arbiter, then you can check out all 10 episodes on the official Raid Shadow Legends YouTube channel now. With all of this exciting stuff and more coming to Raid, if you haven't started playing yet, then what are you waiting for? You can use my link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses. We're talking about an epic champion and other useful things like energy refills and XP boosters. Once you're in and crushing your enemies, come find me under the name Hans Roblox, and if you're fast enough, you can join my clan. So just hit the link in the description and I'll see you in game. Okay, so now I'm going to be telling you guys about the 2 beginner swords in Blox Fruits that every beginner should get their hands on. So the first sword that most of you might already know is the katana. The katana is a common sword that can be bought for a total of 1,000 belly. And getting it is really easy. It's located on the Pirate Starter Island and you can buy it from the sword dealer. It's located both at the Pirate Starter Island and the Marine Starter Island. And the NPC that sells it to you is the sword dealer. And since this is a sword, the katana has a total of 2 different skills. The first one only has a 1 mastery requirement, so as soon as you buy the sword, you literally get it. And the second one only has a 20 mastery requirement, so it's also pretty easy to get. The first ability is called Quiet Rush, and what this does is the user dashes slashes forward, dealing a bunch of slashes to the enemy. And the second one is air slash, and this one is pretty self-explanatory. You just shoot out a huge air slash, dealing a bunch of damage to the enemy. Overall, one of the best beginner swords in Blox Fruits, if not the best, and for the price, it's definitely worth it. Okay, so next up, moving on to the cutlass. This is a very similar sword to the katana. It also costs 1000 belly, and you can buy it from the sword dealer. And the abilities are literally the exact same thing. You have Quiet Rush with the 1 mastery requirement and the air slash with the 20 mastery requirement. Overall, I'm not really sure about the differences between these swords. They might just be retextures, so it's up to you which one you want to buy. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be telling you about a beginner secret that not a lot of players talk about, and I'm talking about the Fountain City quest. So the Fountain City is the final island on the first sea, and you're not actually supposed to go to it until you get the quest. But there's a pretty cool trick you can do before you even get that quest, and that is as soon as you spawn and head over to the Fountain City, then all you have to do is glitch an enemy behind the wall and then just do a bunch of damage to them and just keep hitting them with your combat style until they die. And you might be scared thinking that you might die, but there's actually a pretty cool glitch in Blox Fruits where if you glitch an enemy behind a wall, you can actually do damage to them without them being able to do any damage to you. And this is really overpowered since this NPC gives you a butt ton of XP. So if you do this a bunch of times, you should literally get 50 levels. But it does take a huge amount of time to kill them, so I recommend that you guys only kill a few of them and not too many, because then it'll take too long and the levels you get won't even be worth it. Next up is another trick that's going to help you a ton when you're farming levels, and I'm talking about the compass. The compass isn't actually 100% accurate when it comes to leveling up really fast. The compass just shows you the next quest that's available for you to unlock, but it doesn't show you the best one to do to gain levels. And an example of this is the Pirate Village. The first quest you get at the Pirate Village are the pirates, and they're really close to each other and pretty easy to group up. But the second quest is brutes, and they're really far away from the quest giver, and they're super spaced out, which means even if you unlock the brute quest, you shouldn't do it, because with the amount of time it takes to walk to each brute and kill them, you can do the pirate quest way faster in a bunch of time, because they're way closer to each other. Even though the brute quest gives you more XP and money, you can finish around 3 pirate quests in the time you do 2 brute quests, just because of how bad the brute quest is. Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna be telling you how to upgrade your stats properly as a pure beginner. As soon as you start off the game, you don't want to upgrade 3 of your stats evenly, like I mentioned in my previous videos. You actually just want to pour all your stats into your melee damage. And the reason you want to do this is because you don't actually need a ton of defense when you start off. You already have 100 health, and the NPCs don't do that much damage. And the reason you want to put all of it into your melee is because you want to just dish out as much damage as possible. And the only time you should start upgrading your sword or defense stats is when you buy your first sword, or when you actually start dying to the damage from the NPCs. That's when you want to start upgrading them. If you're not dying to other NPCs, just don't even bother upgrading your defense stats, because it literally doesn't matter too much. Okay, so this next trick is also something that's really important when you're completing your quest, and it's to group up your enemies. And the reason you want to do this is if you have splash damage attacks, then you can deal damage to multiple NPCs because they're standing in the same place. So you don't need to waste unnecessary attacks to deal a bunch of extra damage when you can just use the same attack and deal the same amount of damage. And if you don't group up your enemies, then it just wastes a lot of time and damage, and you finish your quest way slower than if you group them up. So just make sure you're doing that. It's really easy to do and saves you a lot of time. Okay, so next up, this is a small bit of advice that you should probably know before you start playing the game, and it's that you take damage from the water, but that's only if you have a Blox Fruit equipped. And in my opinion, it's a really fair trade because Blox Fruits help you a ton in the game. But for some reason, if you actually want your ability to swim over having a Blox Fruit, then there's actually a way to remove your Blox Fruit. All you have to do is head over to the prison on the first sea, and at the back of it, there should be an NPC that lets you remove your Blox Fruit. But you have to pay him the hefty fee of 50,000 belly, and this amount of money might be kind of hard to get if you're still a first sea player, but it depends how far along you are. Okay, so now I'm going to be telling you about a pretty important game mechanic that you can use once you start the game, and I'm talking about the dash function. Most of you should already know about this, but if you're a complete beginner, you might not. So this ability is pretty self-explanatory. You dash when you click the button Q, and there's actually a variety of things that this helps with. One of the uses is to get to places really fast. The other one is to dash above water so you don't actually take any damage while you're above it. And the third one is while fighting enemies. And I'm talking about PvP and against NPCs. So when you're in a PvP fight, you can use this ability to just dash around, be really unpredictable so your opponent just misses all of their shots. And when you're fighting NPCs, you can use this dash trick. So all you have to do is hit an NPC and really quickly dash away. It's not 100% guaranteed that you won't take any damage, but it's a really good way to ensure that you don't take a lot of damage. And the reason for that is NPCs actually take a moment to register that you're standing in front of them. So by the time they notice you're there, you can actually just hit them and instantly dash away. And there's some enemies that are really slow to attack, and this trick is really useful against them. Overall, a pretty decent trick, and just make sure you're using it everywhere you go. Okay, so now this is something that's going to save you a bunch of time when you're just roaming around in Blox Fruits, and I'm talking about setting your spawn barn. You should definitely be setting your spawn point at almost every island that you visit. And the reason for this is even if you go off the island island later to maybe buy a fruit, spin the Blox Fruit gacha, or anything else. You can just simply teleport to the island where your main quest is. And this is going to save you a butt ton of time. But the only thing I will tell you guys is do not set your spawn point at the prison. And the reason for this is that there's actually no way to get off the prison unless you have a specific type of fruit, because the prison doesn't have any boat spawns. So unless you have no devil fruit and you can literally swim in the water, I don't advise setting your spawn point there. It's kind of dumb. Okay, so this next trick I'm going to talk about is really simple and really easy to get done. It's chest grinding. And a lot of you new players watching might be wondering what chest grinding is. It's simply just walking around collecting every chest, and then once you collected every single chest in the area that you're farming, instead of waiting for the chest to respawn again, you're just going to simply server hop and repeat the process. A place that I mentioned a lot of times in my videos is the temple in Upper Sky, so I'm going to be telling you about a different location that's really easy to get access to. It's the Pirate Village, and a lot of beginners chest farm here. Get their hands on some really quick and easy cash. I'm not 100% sure where all the chests on the island are. You can simply search up a video for that, but I do know that it's an excellent spot to farm chests for beginners. Okay, so this next technique is really simple to do if you're beginner. All you have to do is get your hands on the smoke fruit, and everyone knows the smoke fruit is pretty easy to get. The reason you want the smoke fruit is because it's the cheapest and easiest to get elemental food in Blox Fruits. It only costs 100,000 belly, and I know that's a bit expensive for beginners. You should be able to rack up the belly with the chest farming method from before. And once you get that, you should definitely buy this fruit. It's literally a common fruit, so it'll be in stock in no time. And also obviously has elemental immunity, which means you won't take damage from enemies unless they have Haki. And the reason you want this specific fruit is because of its F ability, Smoke Bomber, and you only need a 10 mastery to unlock it. What this ability does is it turns the user into a smoke, gaining the flight ability, and you continuously drop smoke bombs from above you. And using this technique, you can grind enemies without them being able to do any damage to you. Just make sure you're flying high enough above them. And if you do all of this, you should be able to just grind out a bunch of enemies. But I still think the Ice, Magma, or Light fruit are better for the first seed. And the overall best grinding fruit in the game is the Buddha fruit. But as a beginner, you won't be getting that in any time. So the smoke fruit is definitely what you want to keep your eye on. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be telling you about two very important NPCs that you should be aware of once you start playing Blox Fruits. The first one is the Blox Fruit Dealer, and you cannot miss this NPC. It's an NPC that's located at the Pirate Starter Island and the Marine Starter Island, so you must have seen this. What the Blox Fruit Dealer is, it's an NPC that'll sell you the abilities of any Blox Fruit. You just simply have to wait for the fruit to be in stock. And obviously, the more powerful fruits will have a way lower chance of being in stock, so you're gonna have to wait a lot longer if you want to get those. That's why I recommended the Smoke Fruit for the previous trick. Next up is the Blox Fruit Gacha, and what the Blox Fruit Gacha is an NPC that lets you spin for a random Blox Fruit. But unlike the Blox Fruit Dealer, you actually get a physical version of this fruit, which means you can also drop it to someone else. The amount of money you have to pay for a spin on the Blox Fruit Gacha differs depending on what your level is. If you're level 50, you have to pay only 32,000 belly for a roll. But if you're the max level, then you have to pay 400,000 belly for just one roll. But the bad thing is that the fruits that you get are completely random, so you could get anything ranging from the leopard fruit to the kilo fruit. So roll at your own risk. Also remember to get Raid Shadow Legends with my link in the description. Using it, you get a bunch of free items.